Hello, everyone. My name is Elisa Ewan, and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at Teachers College. Thank you for joining us today for our Alumni Career Development webinar, which is co-sponsored by TC Next and Alumni Relations. It covers a range of career-related topics and features speakers from a variety of industries. This is one of the many ways you can stay engaged to your TC family. I'd like to quickly remind you of a few more ways you can maintain a meaningful connection with Teachers College. 1, hire TC alumni and students. 2, refer prospective students back to the college. 3, show your pride by including Teachers College in all of your professional credentials. 4, share your talent and expertise by volunteering to speak at TC events or by joining one of our Alumni Association committees. And 5, when the time is right for you, support TC financially by donating to the TC Fund. We are especially grateful for the TC alumni who share their knowledge through insightful presentations, like the one we're about to hear, for all of the TC community to learn together. And now I would like to introduce today's events presenters from Training and Coaching 3, Tanisha Jain, Robert Louis Charles, and Carlos Osuna, who will be presenting Discover Your Brand, How to Leverage Your Strengths, Accomplishments, and Vision for Professional Growth. As a consultant and a coach, Tanisha Jain is driven by enabling individuals to thrive and live in alignment with themselves and others around them, as well as facilitating transformative experiences. She is the CEO and co-founder of Training and Coaching 3. Robert Louis Charles's professional journey encompasses almost 2 decades of leading personal and professional transformations within individuals, teams, and organizations to flourish in an increasingly complex world. He now spearheads this work as the co-founder of several wellness-based businesses, including Training and Coaching 3. These ventures support individuals from all walks of life to learn even more about themselves. Carlos Osuna is a doctoral candidate in the Adult Learning and Leadership Program and has also served as a career coach and advisor at Teachers College. He is also one of the co-founders of Training and Coaching 3. As a recipient of the Gates Millennium Scholarship and the first of his family to attend college, Carlos is inspired to improve the way learning is designed by advocating for the needs of the learners through the lens of culture and context. Our speakers will be taking questions from the audience during the latter part of the event, so please feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A pane below. We will be utilizing Mentimeter during today's webinar, so please make sure to have your phone or device ready. Also, if you can also have a pen and paper nearby, our presenters will be asking you to jot down some questions or do some reflection. We will also be utilizing the chat feature, and that is located at the bottom of your screen. We are recording this webinar, and you will receive this recording in a follow-up email. If you have any technical or audio issues, please feel free to chat and let us know how we can help. And without further ado, please help me welcome Carlos, Tanisha, and Robert.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elisa. That was like an amazing introduction. I loved it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're super excited to be here with you all. Wherever you may be in the world, we're just extending gratitude. Usually at TC3, short for Training and Coaching 3, we do a lot of workshops. And so I know today is a webinar. And so we're going to try to make this as interactive as possible. So if you're smiling, smile back at me right now. I know I cannot see you, but we'll love to make sure that, that you're smiling. And I trust that you're in a good spirit in today's sessions together. And so what's today's sessions about? So today's webinar is all about discovering your brand. So every career professional needs a brand. And so today we want to discuss a couple of things. And one is, how do you develop one? And really we're going to focus on your knowledge of strengths, accomplishment, and vision for the future as it relates to your brand. And so what I want to kind of invite you to do right now is just get your right hand, touch your right hand hard, and read that quote that you see here, which is trust in you of now. And just trust that you are meant to be where you're at right now. And so wherever you are in your discovery of your brand, whether it may be in the beginning, whether it may be you're in a new career change, or whatever the case may be, just trust that you are where you're supposed to be. And just be very curious as we embark in this webinar together. Um, so with that being said, let's dive in. Let's just start with the chat box right now. If you could just describe one word as you are entering the space, what would that word be? And as y'all chime in on the chat box, I'll go ahead and transition to the next slide. So love it. Yeah, it's coming through. Okay, I was like, it's curious, hopeful, excited, anxious. Totally. Intrigued, appreciative, awesome. Love all this, and keep on coming. This is interaction webinar. So I kind of wanted to take an opportunity to talk about TC3 and the humans behind this brand. So TC3 has this very unique brand. We exist because learning how to learn about oneself is an art and a science, and it's really not taught. And so we wanted to really support the current and future generation of leaders to empower themselves and help them bridge the gap between personal and professional. And so TC3 has a very simple mission. And that mission is making self-development more affordable and accessible. And so you'll see we have a lovely picture of us three here. And within our name, there's three words, these three unique words. And as you see, for example, for me, intentional, lovable, reflective, these are the words that I like to show up in spaces in my own personal brand, as well as TC brand. And so one kind of message I want to drive here as you discover your brand in this webinar is our personal qualities also defines our professional strengths. And so just wanted to, as y'all are thinking about the spaces and the words that you're kind of showing up here, just sit in that. So I'm going to invite my colleagues to see if they want to add something in this slide.
Tanisha, awesome. Yes, absolutely. Welcome everyone once again. Just as you see this, one of the things that you've been obviously learning, we do provide holistic cohort-based training and individual and group coaching that are really bridging the gap between where you are and where you can be personally and professionally. And we all went to TC and did different majors. So I did Org Psych, Carlos is from Adult Learning, and Rob is from the SMBI program. So it was really exciting for us to come together in this space, and we're so excited to be here once again, back to alma mater.
And I'll just quickly jump in, just again, just to say I'm excited, similar to my colleagues here, excited for us to discover our brands and continue to do that work. If there's one tip I can offer you as we go through our session today, it's simply bring yourself to the space, ask the questions. There are no silly questions. And even more importantly, you are the content. So we will share insights with you today about what it means to discover your brand. However, more importantly, your content and who you are will be the crux and the essence of what you learn today. So back to you, Carlos.
I love that. Thank you. And so let's start off with our first Mentimeter here. And I would love to just open up to you all, as Robert was just mentioning, that y'all are the content here. We would love to hear from you. Like, why did you choose to attend today's webinar? If you don't mind going to the Mentimeter, www.menti, there's instruction on the slide, menti.com, and using the code that you see there, I can say it out loud. The code is 6581-5232. And just take a couple of seconds to write down, why did you choose to attend today's webinar? If you are not able to also type in for whatever the case may be, maybe you not have an extra device, feel free to put in the chat box too. We like to do in Mentimeter so we can see everyone's responses all together. But I'll also highlight some of the things that y'all say in the chat box too. Cool. So I see a couple of them coming in. That's awesome. Looking for a new job, feeling stuck, recent grad, not sure what it means to be a brand. That's I love that you mentioned that. Explore another industry, launching my business, bridging the gap between personal and professional, looking for a new career path. Love that. Feeling the need to be inspired. Especially during like the pandemic, right? Like we've been kind of, trapped or should I say quarantine. And then I know that looks very different in different countries. But yeah, I'm with you. All to say is I see you all. I resonate with some of these things too. Strengthening my current brand. I love that. And you can see that folks are from different perspective when it comes to brand. And so love that y'all are really being intentional. And I invite you all that as we continue with the webinar today, this is kind of your starting point and like where you're coming from. So yeah. So love that. Keep on adding more. I'll just pause here and see if my colleagues want to add something before I move into the next slide. We're good? Perfect. Okay. Did we get some on the chat box? I'm not seeing them here. Okay, looking for a new job. Because I'm an educator, my brand is always live. Yeah, that's so true. We're, self-development is an evolving journey, and our brand is too. Preparing to an interview. Oh, that's exciting. Okay, cool. So hopefully as we dive into the brand, you're able to kind of showcase and utilize this for your interview and then transitioning and wanting to be an entrepreneur. I love it. This is all great. Oh my God, I'm like super excited. So this is cool. All right, so I'm gonna go to the next slide. And I'm gonna pass the mic to Tanisha, in which she will talk a little bit about what we're gonna do today.
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. And it was so wonderful to hear just everything you all shared in terms of just how much and what you all needed and why you're looking to come. And that is precisely a lot of the stuff we're going to do today. So we spent some time in our virtual check-in. Today, you can expect two big topics that we will be covering. The first one being really understanding the power of brands more holistically. And then really then from there, delving into what is it? What is our own brand? So you'll get some time for reflection and, we'll be guiding you through some questions to really begin doing that process for yourself. Post that, we'll have a checkout, share some ways you can stay connected with us, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. And with that, I would just move us to the next slide, please. We'll just begin with our first, really the power of brands. And, this slide is really to ground ourselves in what is a brand and the definition of a brand. And, a brand is what we think as in TC3 when we started this webinar is it's beyond what a name and logo is for a brand, but it's really, the experience that kind of you leave with when you're interacting with a brand. So one of our invitations to you as you go through this session is really think about what is it? What is your brand? What is the experience you want people to leave with when they interact with you? And what is the lasting impression you want to have on others? And those are some of the things we'll kind of, those are the sticky feelings that kind of stick with a brand much beyond just a name or a logo of a brand. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Carlos, to just take us into the next slide. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love that we start off with some grounding work around how do we think about brand, right? That's a really important distinguish because at TC3, we are constantly thinking about these two concepts. which is professional and personal. And in between those two, it's you. And so really, in fact, knowing that self-development, it's a constant evolving journey. One of our philosophy here at TC3 is building that foundation to support participants or anyone who comes into our space, bridging that gap between personal and professional, because that in the middle is you, right? And so before we dive into discovering your brand, I do want to take an opportunity to just talk a little bit about the power of brands. And more specifically, let's discuss what these mean and when it comes to professional and personal. So I'll go ahead and start with the professional here. And so before I kind of go into the details of all the professional aspect as it relates to why discovering a brand is important, I want to take a step back and just mention a couple of things. One is I attended this amazing webinar by one of my good friends, Cynthia Manuel, who did a presentation on how do you crack the code on mentorship. And it was more specifically for BIPOC folks. And in that presentation, there was a resource and a scholar that she highlighted that I want to present into this space as we think about professional. And that scholar is Yoso, which is also on the bottom, there's a source. And Yoso kind of created this 6-part cultural wealth model. It's a 6 type of capital that education leaders may use to frame interaction with students. And so Yoso designed his model to really capture the talents, the strengths, the experiences that students of color in particular bring with them in their prospective environment, higher education and beyond. Although this model is a lens of BIPOC and people of color, we wanted to highlight it because it could be applied to everybody, especially in the sense of professional lens. And so we're going to discuss is 4 out of them and 4 out of the 6. And they are all form of capital and wealth. And so that could really be used to empower individuals. And so the first one is social capital. And social capital is really defined by the resources that you have in your personal connections and network. It could be in relation to your friends, your peers, your colleagues, whatever spaces that you're in, right? And so growing your network and community really helps grow your brand. The second one is navigational capital. So this really refers to the skills and ability to navigate social institutions, including the one that we're at right now, Teachers College, right? But also not only professional, but also personal. And this could also be included in spaces that you may not be familiar. And so really being able to know what your brand is and in relation to how you navigate spaces is really, really important. And then the third piece I want to highlight here is cultural capital. Very similar to social capital. Cultural capital refers to the knowledge capability that is needed to effectively interact, work, and develop meaningful relationship with people of various backgrounds. And so developing cultural competency could really help grow your brand. And then lastly is aspirational capital. This refers to your hopes and dreams. And so knowing your why as a professional, I know there was already some folks saying like they're in different spaces in terms of why you attended this webinar. Just knowing that your hopes and why can really help you be intentional of your brand. And you can move intentionally with persistence and motivation. So just wanted to highlight these professional aspects. So now I'm going to pass the mic to Robert, who's going to talk more about the personal lens.
Thanks, Carlos. So as Carlos shared, discovering your brand and understanding, particularly on the professional side, it helps externally to enhance our interactions with others and the world around us. And as many of you mentioned, in the opening, you all are seeking to understand more of your brand and what it means to transition into a new work environment, or launching your business and marketing yourselves. So all of those things are about communicating and connecting with folks externally. But then on the other side, many of you also mentioned building confidence, strengthening how you communicate your values. And so that is on the personal side. And so let me take you through a bit of what that looks like. So through the process of discovering your brand, you will increase self-awareness. What does this mean? It means paying more attention to how you show up in spaces, understanding why you do what you do, but also around self-awareness, it encourages reflection. So overall, the ability to monitor yourself is one of the most important traits that you can have as a leader, as an individual contributor, and more broadly, just as a human in general. So the next component in discovering your brand is values. And so when you discover your brand, you further clarify what matters to you. And what do we mean by that? Naming and knowing what you believe in becomes essential to the way you live, to the way you work, to the decisions you make. And overall, your values create a sort of decision tree for you and help you prioritize. And also how you even define what success looks like or what progress looks like in your life. Next component, discovering your brand also teaches us what we prefer versus where we thrive. And why is this important, or why does this matter? Differentiating what you prefer to do rather than what you're good at can assist in making career choices. Furthermore, it also teaches us our gaps. Why do I say that? Well, preferring one thing does not mean that you excel in it. And it does not mean you possess the skills to execute or implement whatever it is you prefer. But having that information internally allows you to work with your limitations, but also begin to identify where you thrive. Last but not least, we have purpose. And discovering our brand connects us more broadly and moves us toward purpose. In essence, when we understand our brand, we move with greater intention. And we move with that intention around deciding where we work, where we live, what we do, and what we pursue. So why is discovering your brand so important? Because it does four things on the personal side. It increases your self-awareness, helps you clarify your values. It sheds light on what you prefer and where you thrive. And last but not least, it connects you and moves you toward purpose. So let's take a moment and look at a real life example of that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robert and Carlos. So as you look at Oprah's picture here, we're going to do another Mentimeter and just really hear from you all. What comes to mind when you see this brand? Just drop in a word or two and we'll just share with you the code that you can enter. So what comes to mind when you see Oprah's brand? Wow, love that. Joy, positivity, philanthropic, influential. We're getting some on the chat. Confidence. Awesome. Communication guru. Love it. And you know, the more common ones are the ones that in big. So you can see confidence, influential, inspirational as just some of the things that are common between all of us that of what we see as Oprah's brand, right? And just give it like about 30 more seconds for any more giving, joyful, genuine, passionate, humanity. Thank you all. This is wonderful. Leader. She enjoys her life, right? Love it. Awesome. Well, okay. Let's see. There's power, compassion, communicator, and inner strength that we see. Well, thank you all so much for engaging in this. And, we wanted, as you think about your own brand, again, think about these are some personal qualities of Oprah that also relate to her professional brand, right? So while she's a magnanimous person as in her personal life, she's also been able to leverage that in her professional life. So you might have heard of the Oprah Effect, right? Which is just she's able to kind of create bestsellers just by featuring people on her shows and all her different things that you can see right from the Super Soul Sunday, the Oprah magazine, her professional brand she shows up a lot of her as her personal brand, right? And we heard that from you all. As a leader, she's compassionate, she enjoys her life, and you see that in her personally and professionally. And that kind of brings the point home for this section of our the power of brands, which is really the two Venn diagrams you've been seeing. So you are in the middle of personal and professional. And this is why we've created this webinar. This is why we really hope you get all the things that you chose to attend this webinar for. Because really understanding your brand, you can, if you understand that well, you can communicate who you are and what you value much more effectively. You can create even more meaningful relationships with others. You can approach people, places, and situations with greater confidence. You can really walk in your own personal power. And you'll become leaders that are inspiring and motivating others to do the same. So that is our wish for you, that you bring something out of this session that allows you to come closer to discovering your brand and having some of these emotions that you highlighted for Oprah come up for you. With that, I will pass the mic back to Robert. Carlos.
Yeah, no, no, it's all good. This is a cool thing about presenting groups. We can like just tap into each other. So I love that. And one of the things I do want to mention that as Tanisha did a phenomenal job in kind of unpacking this this example of Oprah around personal and professional. It's like the words that y'all chose, right? Like, where did that come from? Like, was it from a TV show? Was it professional? Was it like through conversation? Like, just recognize that and sit in that, right? And so because it comes from everywhere. And this really leads into our next activity here, which is TC3 brand inventory. And so Robert's going to walk us through each of these sections, but I want to kind of take an opportunity to kind of tell you what we're about to embark. And so this tool that we call brand inventory, it's really an opportunity for you all to just discover your brand. Again, you may be in different spaces, but this is an opportunity for you all to just be reflective. And so, you know how we mentioned that there's, y'all could bring your pen and paper. This is an opportunity to just kind of reflect a little bit. We are going to go through this pretty quickly, given that it is a webinar. But we are going to give you all a worksheet after this webinar. And this worksheet will be an opportunity for you all to just set some time, like 30 minutes or so, to just really reflect on these categories. And so what we're about to do right now, we're about to tell you what each of them are, define them, give you some guiding question, and also some resource that will help you with each of these categories. So yeah, so with that being said, I'll pass the mic to Robert and we'll kick it off.
And before we move forward, just again, want to quickly name that we call this TC3's brand inventory. We know that this is not the end all be all around how to identify your brand, but what we want to offer you is a starting point on how to think about it, and then leverage the information and insights to further communicate who you are, what matters to you, and what you can offer that is unique to your organization, that is unique to your team, and that is unique to the world, wherever you are. And so we'll begin with the first component, which is background and social identity. And this component is about exploring your uniqueness and the parts of identity that allow you to bring an alternate, diverse perspective, whether to your team, to the workplace, and to groups, and even the classroom. And so a guiding question that we encourage you to ask yourselves is, what is your diversity pedal? And what do we mean by diversity pedal? Well, that's the first resource we want to provide you. This resource helps you to imagine your uniqueness. And so here, what we're saying is, if you spend time really thinking about the things that make you unique and diverse, they actually add color to the space. They add color to the work. And so take a moment, not just now, but beyond our session today, to reflect on that. And from a brand standpoint, what does this do for us? Well, it helps you tell your unique story.
Yeah, and maybe I can just quickly share on this my unique story, as so some of the words that you all saw for me that I really bring to my brand personally and professionally are just unconventional, free-spirited, and loving. And why I say that and how it relates to this diversity petal, I want to quickly, I think for me, I really highlight the gender piece and the gender, the international piece, and I'll add a petal here about occupation, which is really starting my own company and being an entrepreneur. And how this all relates really is, it begins with my value of really pushing the boundaries for South Asian women. And to be able to do that, I was able to start my own, at an early stage in my career, I was able to start something of my own with these two wonderful human beings. And that is the unconventional piece about my brand that I was able to bring professionally into my life. The international piece, I definitely came all the way from India, came to TC, and it's the part of me, my personality that is, that is loving, likes to explore and meet new people. But beyond just coming to TC and studying and kind of having such wonderful experiences, it's also a big part of my role here and what I do here. So, it's just to show you all, these are just a few examples to show you all how our diversity petal really informs some of the things that we do and our own brand. So I hope that kind of helps bring this a little bit more to life. Back to you, Rob.
Thanks, Tanisha. So this second component, which we call strengths, is about exploring your is about exploring what abilities, talents, skills that allow you to thrive. And some guiding questions here to consider are, what are some things that colleagues or friends say you do really well, whether it's in passing, whether it's jokingly, or whether it's formal on a performance evaluation. But you really want to consider those things because sometimes we miss out on that and we may forget what we do really well. And then for you, think about some things that you do really well. There's nothing too small and there's nothing too big when you think about your strengths. And so some resources that can help you further think about this are asset-based tools that help you uncover additional strengths, or what I like to call are potential blind spots. We may not even realize areas that we really thrive in. And so when we complete these assessments from a brand standpoint, it equips us with a language and a deeper understanding for the practical skills that we thrive in and practical skills that are important for the workplace. So two examples that we have here are Clifton Strengths and Strength Scopes. There are some others, given that we all are part of the Teachers College community. And I know in multiple programs, we are all about assessment. So we want to take an opportunity to hear what are some other strengths-based assessment tools that you all have used to identify your unique strengths. If you all can take a moment, go to menti.com, and I will include the link here. So we have Myers-Briggs. Would love to hear any others. Strengths Quest. Never heard of High Five, but that sounds fun. BIA strengths are another great one, 16 personalities. So as you can see, there is a never-ending list of strengths-based tools that will push our thinking beyond the basic list of strengths that we think we have and allow us to understand and uncover some of the more invisible strengths, right? The ones that we don't see day to day that we just may not be aware of that can really help us thrive in our career.
Yeah, I love this. I never heard of some of these things. This is why I love these spaces because I also learn so much. I do want to just highlight one thing, the NBI. So at TC3, we also administer NBI. That's one of my favorite assessment actually. And the reason being is it goes into the to this process of you cannot do any tasks cognitively. It's both cognitively and emotionally effective. And so that exam or that assessment, I should say, really supports and gives you some where you're at, where do you sit when it comes to your strength in that regards. But just want to highlight that because that's something that we also talk about a lot.
Thanks, Carlos. And as you can see here, there's a never-ending list. So if you ever feel like you're stuck and maybe you don't have the language or the words to communicate what you're really good, what you're really good at, well, here are some additional tools and resources for you all today.
Take
And
a
this answer,
screenshot.
yes, please take a screenshot. And for many of you who asked the question earlier, where are your strengths and how do you communicate your value? Leverage these tools for that. And so let's move on to our third component. This component of the brand inventory, which focuses on growth, is about exploring and being open to new ways and even new areas to either improve or to enhance yourself. And so some guiding questions here are, what skills have you learned or mastered throughout your career? Or what new skills are you hoping to learn and master? And the reason why we want to take an opportunity here to focus on growth, I want to share just a very quick story. For example, collaboration has always been a natural talent of mine throughout my career. However, because I wasn't fully aware of it and or didn't realize it was a strength that I was bringing to workplaces and groups, through mentorship, through those assessments, and through various conversations with colleagues and peers, they brought that to my attention. And I began thinking about, okay, well, what are some other ways in which I can enhance my collaborative skills? Well, what they pointed out were spend even more time listening and enhancing your listening skills. Find ways to ask the right questions. Find ways to better understand, seek to understand before responding. And it was just those simple things that really changed the game for me and allowed me to have greater collaboration. So what do I mean by greater collaboration? Fast forward years later, here I am. We've co-founded Training and Coaching 3, but I've also worked on and co-founded other businesses, wellness-based businesses. And it was simply because I learned and mastered, and I continue to master the skill of collaborating with diverse groups and diverse individuals from all walks of life. So here on this screen, what you see is a resource. This resource, knowing these human skills, and one of our TC3 guest speakers in our self-development series said she doesn't like to call this soft skills. She likes to call these human skills because they allow us to thrive and communicate our value proposition in any role, in any industry, at any time. So with this resource, take a moment as you reflect to think about which skills here do you naturally thrive in? And then ask yourself and ask others, how can you continue to thrive in that area? Maybe even think about other skills that you don't necessarily thrive in. What can you do differently? So on to this next component, which is around accomplishments. This is about exploring and tracking and reflecting on your greatness, period. Reflect, track, and explore your greatness. Because if you don't do it, who will do it for you? And so think of this as a process of your champion walking with you every single day, highlighting to this guiding question, what are your personal, professional, and educational achievements? And this exercise, which will lead us into our resource, the resource that we like to call it is Walk of Confidence. We don't mean literally, however, literally taking a walk of confidence could help too. But this practice is around building a list of things that you are extremely proud of, accomplishments and achievements. And we've included some dimensions here to think beyond your personal life, beyond your professional life, but maybe think about your spiritual life, hobbies, other things that you do really well, even things that you do within your family really well. Remember, there's no such thing as a little accomplishment.
Yeah, I feel called to just share something real quick here.
Mhm.
We do this exercise in our workshops at TC3. And one of the things that we always highlight is that this is an evolving sheet and you can always have it with you. In fact, I would say because we all did this exercise and I did this exercise, and one of the things that was highlighted to me as part of my brand, something I'm really proud of is the fact that, you know, getting my doctorate, you know, being the first in my family getting my doctorate, getting the Gates Millennium Scholarship, kind of going through different obstacles, right? And for me, growing up in Boyle Heights, low income community, like that was like I'm very proud of it, but I don't necessarily talk about it as much. But one of the brands that kind of came out of it was like I'm intentional and resilient, right? And so knowing that I'll be able to kind of what do I then do with that information? Apply to jobs that I know it may be scary, but hey, I've done it before. I've done something similar. I could apply to that. Also being able to like be in new spaces, right? And so just that's just I want to share that story to just don't limit yourself in the walk of confidence. It could be something so personal, and I guarantee you that you'll find a brand, a theme across your walk of confidence.
So
But yeah.
glad you mentioned that, Carlos, because this resource, as Carlos mentioned, it helps to enhance self-esteem, but also what you realize is no brand is built overnight. And so you can see through Carlos's example and through this exercise that you'll track your continued rise as a brand, and you'll see your brand evolve through time. So last but not least, our final component, number 5, direction. This component is about fine tuning and sketching out your brand's future, or um, more specifically, your life's roadmap. And as you can see here, we've shared some simple questions to ask ourselves. What are some of your short-term goals and what are some of your long-term goals? And again, don't just think professionally, but also look at personal goals and maybe even educational goals, maybe even spiritual goals, because you begin to realize that there might be a common thread along all of those goals. And so the resource we've shared here is actually a resource that we use internally in many of our workshops. And this resource is around creating your North Star. And what it does is it brings your values, it brings your strengths, and also allows you to think about where do you feel called to go next? And owning that, oftentimes, we might be hesitant or fearful to write down where we want to go next if it doesn't feel or quote unquote attainable or achievable. But what we offer you is to imagine that future self and go there. And again, begin aligning what you are envisioning with where you are and your current skills and where you've been. Then you begin to see the continuum. So, what does this all mean? Well, one, discovering your brand is a process. It requires looking and exploring you personally, professionally, spiritually. Um, but more importantly, you have to make the time for it. So, the first thing that we want to name for you as a next step is using the worksheet that we share out with you all to take about 30 minutes, as Carlos mentioned earlier, and to really just go through those five components of our inventory and answer those questions.
Yeah, and part of that process, take it to the next level. And once you completed that worksheet, reflect and share with your trusted friend, your colleague, your peer, or family member, and just learn how your brand connects with others. That's a good opportunity for you to take it to the next level of this worksheet.
Wonderful. And we're hearing a lot about the worksheet and the slides. So just want to make a quick call out. You will get access to a worksheet right after this webinar. And the idea of the first task in the process is really take the time to use that worksheet, find a space that feels really, really like comforting to you, and really take the time to write these answers for yourself, right? Because we can talk so much, but the real learning is going to happen when you get in the room and actually write answers to some of these questions for yourself. So you'll get that post this webinar. You'll also get the recording. So, but beyond that, please, please, please stay connected with us. We're so happy to be here, and we are continuously doing new things, more innovative things. And just we are really building this movement, like we like to call it. So you can join us and stay connected with us on LinkedIn. We're very active on Instagram. But beyond that, please do subscribe to our newsletter, where you'll continuously, we'd like to share different tips, and we like to keep engaged with people. And the last thing is our YouTube channel. We've really recently started a speaker series. So one of our initiatives of making self-development affordable and accessible is really to bring people from all walks of life and share their stories on self-development. So you can watch that on our YouTube channel as well. Some of the ways you can stay connected, but really beyond that, please just drop in and hello. You can email us and you can also reach out to us on LinkedIn. So we just hope to kind of stay connected with you throughout. And we're at this point open for Q&A.
Hello. Well, first off, just a quick thank you to the three of you for taking the time to go through this. And everyone, I just want to let you know that we're going to set some time aside for Q&A. So if you haven't already, please feel free to submit your questions, which you can add them in the Q&A pane below. All right, guys. So the first question that we have today, we talked about strengths, we talked about strengths assessments, and, Robert, you alluded to this during the presentation, but, sometimes it's really difficult to figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, especially if you're really critical about yourself. So how would you recommend people to figure these things out, or what advice would you have in terms of assessing our strengths, in addition to, of course, those strengths assessments that we looked at earlier?
I think Carlos raised his hand, so go for it first, Carlos.
I know this is a really good question, and I love this question. And so it made me think about one thing, and Robert, like, feel free to chime in afterwards. One of the things that I like to do with with our clients and even with our participants in this space is get to know what the assessment is. So whatever the assessment you're about to do, just get to know what the result is. Take an educated guess of what you think you are, and then take the assessment, and then you'll get the results. See if they align. And if they don't, this is an opportunity for you to really understand, ooh, like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Just because sometimes when we get the result, we're like, okay, cool, now what? So being able to kind of reflect on that could be helpful. Just wanted to provide that tip, but Robert, please go for it.
I love that practice. That's a great first step in the journey. And then couple that with finding a coach, finding someone to help you process your results with. Whether it's someone that you are familiar with, but I would highly encourage you to step out and venture out and identify a coach or a mentor or someone who is willing to invest in helping you further discover how you show up and how you can continue to enhance those strengths. So this is not it doesn't have to be a personal journey, and highly recommend you taking that journey with someone.
Fantastic. Thank you. So our next question is, as we get older and we learn new things, we're constantly evolving as humans, which means I would imagine that our brand would also evolve. So how do we manage this change? Like, how often do we need to be reevaluating our brand, both professionally and personally? And how do we change this? And what does that look like exactly?
Well, I can quickly jump in with a quick thought. It definitely will evolve, right? Like that is such an accurate point, and we should go into discovering our brand with that notion that we are continuously evolving. However, just recognize that. So two things to kind of consider. One is recognize the 2 or 3 values that are important to you. So as you evolve as a human being, your values will just look different in the way the different decisions you will make, but your values most likely will stick around. So something that you can expect to stick is potentially your values, but something that you can expect to continuously change are your goals, right? So what you want to do about your brand is potentially going to change, and potentially you think you want to do X, but 2 years later you think you want to do Y. But and that is the last piece around, like, continually check in with yourself on what is that you want to do, what direction you want to go in, but also recognize your values are most likely going to stay the same. So you can hold that as just like your sort of guardrail as you evolve in different sort of spheres. That's a little bit from me. Carlos, I feel like you have something to add.
Yeah, I do. I quickly wanted to add, because I think that was so beautiful. And in fact, you sharing made me think about something that Robert presented on the 5th category of the brand inventory, which was direction. And that one of the biggest things was like long-term versus short-term. So the way in which you can kind of start managing is like, what is your long term, and then recheck your short term, making sure that it aligns with your long term. So just, you could do that, whatever your short term goals are, whether it may be every year or every month. That's a good way to manage, like, okay, and that's an opportunity to reflect, like, am I doing what the things that I want to do? If not, what are the ways in which I could change? But and if it does change, that's okay, like what Tanisha was saying. Like, I think that's important to really recognize as well.
Oh, I just want to quickly add to that, Carlos. I'm so sorry. And I can't emphasize enough to constantly check in with yourself around your brand. And so this worksheet that we are offering you, this is now a lifetime tool that you have. So check in, whether it's every year or every 6 months, whatever time frame feels good to you, check in with yourself, and you can do this on your own.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we have a couple of questions kind of all around the theme of social media and how do we showcase our brand via social media. So the first one is really, we finish watching this webinar, we get our worksheet, we go through everything, we figure out our strengths, we figure out our diversity petals and all these other things. And we, come to the end, we're like, okay, I know what my personal professional brands are. What do we do with that afterwards in terms of social media? Does it need to be on LinkedIn? If so, what does that look like? Do we put that on like Facebook and Instagram and other things like that? How does that work? Especially, most people are using, their Instagram or their Facebook for personal reasons. So how does that translate into a professional setting?
I will let Rob take this, but I also will add some stuff. Oh, okay. Rob's like, no. Okay.
I love that you just like volunteered.
I know. I'm like, thank you, Rob. Thank you. Rob is like, no. Okay. So I would say before getting into social media, you need to really be super intentional what your brand is before you step foot into social media, because social media is gonna essentially really you're able to then, once you know your brand, you're able to really filter out what social media makes the most sense, right? So like if your brand is targeting older folks, or if your brand is targeting a specific population, again, you know how we talked about personal and professional, and like you being that, you are kind of in the between, right? And so being really intentional. What social media platform will really align with that, right? And every social media platform is different. Twitter is different, Instagram is different, even like the analytics part of it, right? And so like really like don't let social media drive your, or don't let social media kind of influence the way your brand should be. Rather, your brand should already be rock solid and allow the social media to kind of flourish that. It should work with your favor. And so all to say is first work on your own personal brand and then figure out what platform makes the most sense.
And if I can add, I love that, Carlos. And if I can add a quick personal story here that kind of, might resonate with some of you. So when I was like beginning to like become active on social media, discovering my brand, like trying to, it was very overwhelming to like begin posting on LinkedIn or, like also showing my face on Instagram, very overwhelming. And I was like, I don't know how to do it, how everyone, like how they all know. And something that like I kept asking myself is what's the easiest way? Like and that was the most authentic way, right? Like what is me absolutely naturally that I don't have to overthink. So even when I did an Instagram, I was like, I'm just going to be casual because that's who I am. And I'll just make a 1-minute video and put it out there. And honestly, it got so like, I'm not, people resonated with that. All that I learned from that was just be like you in a way that feels so authentic and natural that you don't have to overthink it. Like the minute you have to overthink it, it's possibly not your brand and you're trying to live up to the expectations of what society expects you to be. So hope that resonates, but just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. I think that's so important, just making sure that you're being your true, authentic self and you're not trying to live up to someone else's expectation or something that you're not. I think that's just so important. So thank you for sharing that story, Tanisha. I know we're getting close to time, but I want to just ask this one last question, just because I know we have so many people on the call still who, are either about to go into an interview or is currently looking for a new job and will be, having some interviews. So in terms of, going to find a new job, going through that interview process, how do we include our brand there? Does it need to be reflective in our resume when we're doing a screening interview or like an in-person or virtual interview? How do we communicate our brand through those three?
I think from my perspective, I think I would highly recommend start with understanding what's the story that you want to tell. Understanding the story you want to tell about your professional journey or your educational experience is the beginning of how you frame your brand, because through that you will identify whether it's a specific industry or a specific skill set that you're bringing to the table. So for example, when I started out my career, I would use keywords as education and training, program development, and org development. And I would really think about what's the story that I want to tell that alludes to my ability to do work in education and training. What are some examples that sort of allow me to emphasize and highlight my background in program development or org development? And through time, going back to one of the first questions around your brand evolving, those headliner words, they changed. They changed to coaching and advising and wellness. However, it was always important for me to understand what is the story that I need to share, and what are the key points to convey to the person sitting across from me to help them better understand who they can expect and what they can expect from me if I do or when I do land the job. Not if, but when I do land the job.
Thank you. I just want to quickly check in with Tanisha and Carlos. Do you have anything else to add to that response? Perfect. Well, I know that we're a little over, so everyone who's still on the call, thank you so much for letting us go over. I know I just wanted to make sure we had some time to answer that one question. Rob, Tanisha, Carlos, thank you so much for taking the time to tell everyone in the TC community on how we can even begin developing our personal professional brand. It's such a daunting task, and y'all were able to put that in such easy, digestible steps. So thank you so much. And I just want to let everyone know again, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar as well as the handout that's being generously provided by our presenters in a post-event email. And in that handout, you'll be able to find links to training and coaching threes website, their newsletter, their YouTube channel, and all of their social media handles as well. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you stay tuned to our emails and social media for details on future events, including Pure Bar Classic with Ali Barclay on Wednesday, July 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you at future TC alumni events. Until then, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.